Happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. Hope you are having a fabulous week. I am sipping on some Pinot Noir tonight, changing it up because after my trip to visit Holly, she got me into cheese spread. So I'm sipping on Pinot Noir with pretzels and cheese spread tonight.
Yeah,
Let me know what you're sipping on. Holly, what are you sipping on?
it's ice water.
There, hey, best way to do it. I've already been talking about having to slow down on the wine for the tummy. But I see Zen Ginger with us, guys. I'm so sorry we're late. We got to talking. I got to talking with Holly about the fire. You know how things go. Also, I will tell you, I won't show my awful wound from last week, but I did show them before we went live. And basically, it's just a really bad place in my hand, right? You can see the band aid. It's fine now, but it got cut on a can. I was opening a can and it sliced really deep. And it's just a really bad place. So it just kept bleeding and it was scaring me. So I ended up going to med check. This happened 30 minutes before Wine Wednesday last week. So I'm sorry we weren't here. That was the reason. I even tried at med check to get on YouTube and post something to tell you guys, hey, we're not going to be here because I'm at MedCheck. And apparently I don't know how to get to making a post on YouTube from my phone. Like I went to Creator Studio, I went to, the channel, and I couldn't figure it out. So anyways, apologies if you were wondering where we were. I'm okay, but I was hurt and that's why we weren't here. And you guys all should go, if you're on Facebook, and join the Facebook group because I always can easily post there from my phone and did last week. Hi, Shyla. Hi, Zen. How we all doing? Okay, so I've got some things to talk about. I know Holly has some things to talk about. Ray, do you have anything to talk about, or are you just here for the fun?
I'm just here.
Okay. Well, I will say I do. So here are the topics for tonight. It is open chat. So if you have any questions or anything you want to ask that you want discussed, that's what we're here for. But if there are no questions, then I want to talk about my mail. I have some pictures to show. I want to ask Ray's opinion, Holly's opinion, and just thoughts on everything. Holly can talk about the fire and also evacuation because she had to get ready to evacuate Seahorses. And then we did have a discussion in the Wine Wednesday chat about a seahorse feeder, frozen food feeder. So honestly, I'd like to start with the frozen food feeder, Ray. And I honestly haven't even had a chance to read about it, but Chris proposed this feeder, and I saw you responding most of all. What are your thoughts on a frozen food feeder for a seahorse?
First of all, I don't think anybody's close to having something that's realistic for seahorses. As you know, from years ago when we had that spell when we got into it, um, the ones that they had then had lots of problems.
Mm-hmm.
And as I see this one, they don't have a lot of information on it, and they don't even have like the ones that we saw some years back there. They had computer generated operation of the design that they had at that time. There's nothing like that available now. They're basically talking a little about it, but not too much. But uh, first of all, it's a case of I don't like the fact that you're putting in, yeah, what do you,
Frozen food.
yeah, well, yeah, but they're in the little packs. What do you call those?
Uh,
Oh, the cubes.
Yeah, the little
okay.
cubes. They,
Okay.
you put in those little cubes. Well, first of all, you're not rinsing it.
Right. Right.
Okay. Second of all, it doesn't keep it frozen. It keeps it at a refrigerated state until it's used.
Mm,
And to me, that's also a no-no.
mhm.
Again,
Sure.
for bacterial problems. But those two things alone, I think, are problematic. But it was also brought up the fact that I don't know whether it was Holly or who it was now, but the fact that there's nobody there to clean up afterwards.
Oh, yeah. That's
And
what I said.
especially if you're just putting in a cube and not putting in a measured amount that they're going to pretty well eat all of it up in a few minutes time, then you're opening yourself up to a lot of problems. And some people say, well, if it's only for a week, what do you got to worry about? Well, in my experience, I've had a lot of things go south on me in less than a week.
Sure, sure. So basically, just to recap, because I was thinking about this while you're talking. So the problems are, number one, if you're just throwing a cube in there, you're not rinsing it. And that's a big no-no with seahorse feeder, seahorse people, because we rinse our frozen mysis to get out anything yucky in there, make it just the mysis that we're giving the seahorses. So using a feeder doesn't allow that, or would it? Could you not rinse it and then put it in? I guess that would kind of
I think it's adapted to take the cubes.
well, and I would
Yeah.
say, wouldn't that like take away from the purpose of it? I'm guessing that the whole point of the conversation was like, if you're on vacation, you can throw cubes in this feeder, it'll spit out some mysis here and there and keep it refrigerated. Is that the premise?
As far as I can tell.
Yeah. So I actually had, I'll try to go grab it here in a second, but I had a new company send me a feeder and I was looking at it and I was thinking about using it when we go to Italy or trying to find a way to use it because as it is, I agree with Ray. It doesn't work because I need, it's not rinsing the food. You're putting all that in the tank. I never do that. I always rinse food. And then
Not
again,
clean
like how to control how much is let out at certain times. For instance, in my tank, because well, in the all-in-one tank, I should say, in the 65-gallon, I have Jabeo feed pumps that I can, adjust and control and etc. In the all-in-one, I don't. So I literally shut everything off to feed. That's just my method right now. In older tanks, I used to broadcast feed. I'd just throw the food in, it'd go everywhere, they'd eat it. But in the all-in-one, I've now added macros. So there's lots of places and crevices and nooks and crannies where food can get caught, add to organics, decay, turn into something that's not good for the tank. So I turn everything off. I feed the seahorses. They eat it all in one spot. I don't have a feeder or a dish like Holly does, but it's kind of the same idea. I put the food right there. They all come eat it. I clean up whatever's left. I don't see how that would work with a feeder, especially in a tank that you couldn't use a controller to turn it off at certain times a day, the same times that it would feed or whatnot. So I'm not seeing it happen, but Holly, you also have mentioned a couple times the cleaning of it. So what do you guys mean? Do you mean just the tube or what do you mean by the cleanup?
Just cleaning in general, like I pointed
What's
out,
left?
my seahorses are messy when they eat too.
Sure.
Yeah, they'll writhe around in the food and scatter it, or they'll take a bite and spit it out,
Mm-hmm.
or they'll look at pieces of food and pick what they want to eat, and then they don't want to eat this one over here. They're picky, so they're just messy. So to me, you always need some way of cleaning up after
Right
the meal
after.
is over.
Agree. And the only reason I was asking about the cleanup is because I remember Dan always used to say he didn't like most of the feeders that started back then because of the long tube.
And I
Because the
take those
tube,
off. I don't like them
yeah,
either.
yeah. And I do remember a lot of people saying that the seahorses would get confused by the tube. Like they'd see the food falling down the tube and they'd be attacking the tube instead
Well,
of
and they have trouble
understanding that it's
getting
coming
them
out the
out
bottom.
too, because at the bottom of the tube, the ones that I've seen is a small opening. And you know, so it doesn't allow them, like I've noticed when mine eat, like I was saying, they like to pick and choose. You know, they like to
Sure.
see all the food and graze, you know, pick at it. And when you have food coming down a tube, they're only able to see a piece or two or three sitting in that little hole.
Right.
And especially if you have a crowd of seahorses gathering around, it nobody wants to snick because everybody's going to run into each other at that hole. You know, they like
Or you have bully seahorses and they all will run into each other.
yes,
Mine would. Mine would.
yes,
They'd be headbutting.
yeah. So I
Uh,
prefer mine. I use the salt critter feeders that have the tube, but the tube is removable. It
gotcha.
comes off. So I
Mhm.
take that off and leave it like a flat table for them. And that works a lot better for me. And then I'm able to keep it clean and they're able to see the food. I'm able to see the food and what's going on. So I
Sure.
just like that design better.
So I did see in our group chat again, if you guys are on Facebook, get into the Seahorse Whisperer group and you can easily ask and join our Wine Wednesday chat. It's literally a chat connected to the group. But I did see Chris talking about imagining a frozen feeder system that would make use of a feeding station and a feed tube that would get the food down to the feed station where it would thaw and hopefully be cleaned out by the tank inhabitants. You could actually set a pump to suck through that feeding tube or another potentially and vacuum after a set period of time when it's done. It wouldn't be fry safe. And um, also, we're still not dealing with the rinsing of the food. That's the big
Yeah.
issue I
Or
see.
the food that's spilled that doesn't stay in the dish.
Right, right.
Because it
So
doesn't, in my
I'm gonna
experience.
I hadn't had time before we started. I just thought we better discuss it because it's in the chat. But I was sent a product by a company. I'm not even gonna, I was gonna go grab it, but I don't think I will because I want to play with it first. And then I'll give an honest review. But also kind of play with how to tweak it because it would be a really nice thing to have a feeder that you could use when you go on vacation for sure.
Mm,
I'm fortunate that I have, you know, a seahorse sitter that I trust now, but
mhm.
man, it and I
You
also use
imagine someone
cameras.
that has a tank that they see no problems with, and they're going to go away on vacation. Unknowingly, their dissolved organic levels are getting to be problematic. They go away for a week or two on holidays, and this thing's putting out the food. The uneaten food is left there, and nobody's pulling it
Yeah,
out. The deal goes up, and you come back to a disaster in the process.
sure, sure. No, I agree. That's why I'm saying, you know, I don't have an opinion yet, except for everything we've discussed.
Hmm.
But I will play with it and see if there's any way to figure out how to use a feeder on a vacation. But my answer so far has been a seahorse sitter and a camera that I can literally watch them anytime I want. And I got a cheap one. If you guys ever want to know about the camera I got, I can share that. I love it. It only comes on if I turn it on, so it's not like
Yeah, that was
sucking
pretty cool.
energy. Yeah, and I showed Holly when I was in
Yeah, well,
California, and I
oh,
was
you
like,
can
"Look,
watch your seahorses. That was pretty cool.
I could literally spy on Sean feeding the seahorses while I was in California. It
Yeah.
was nice."
I
Um,
think somebody needs to invent a seahorse Roomba vacuum
oh
that runs around
yeah,
their tank sucking up
I
stuff.
love it. The snails aren't fast
Some
enough, and they don't
inventor,
go
please
exactly
do
where we
that.
want. I
But
love it. Hey,
Every time you change your decor, you have to reprogram.
yeah,
Yeah,
right, right,
right.
true. So I do want to say I see Fish Fam link. I should have mentioned this at the very start. I'm sorry guys, I jumped right in. But I did want to mention too that in case you missed 2 weeks ago's episode, I did announce that Holly and I came up with a design for the member shirts. Um, I did put up a post on YouTube. I did get some responses, but if you even if you're not a current member, if you were a member, an expert member, please reach out to me because I want to get you a shirt. Because if you ever were, you earned the shirt. So just need sizes. I ordered a bunch of samples. I'm really excited to see how they come in. And I hope everybody wears them on Wine Wednesday and everybody wears them to, like MACNAs and all that stuff. It'd be great. But I did follow through and we are doing it. So get with me because I want to send you your shirts. And I did say, see too, that Zen, you showed me that I can just go to post on the page on the phone, because that's how I do it on the computer. Oh, you never tried on a PC.
So on the phone, yeah.
So I just need to spend more time investigating because I couldn't find that post page or post link on my phone. I don't know. Maybe I need to update. Could be the truth. But yeah. So anyways, get me your shirt sizes, guys. I will work on being able to announce if I'm not going to be here better. And I appreciate your help. So before we go to my Seahorse, Holly, kind of talking about the cleanliness of the tank and all that kind of leads way into evacuation processes. So what all did you have to go through when you thought you were going to
Yeah.
have to tell us?
So it was a good drill for me because we went, for those who don't know, I live near the park fire that's going on in Northern California right now. And it got close enough to us to where we were issued an evacuation warning. And the steps they take is first they issue an evacuation warning, which means get ready just in case. And when it turns into an evacuation order, then you have to go. If you do go, you can't come back till they lift the order. So you could be evacuated sometime for weeks. This has happened to me before. So I have to plan for these things with the seahorses because there's no way I could evacuate and leave them and they would survive. So some people leave early during the warning time just so they're ready and it doesn't come to a rush. But for me, I don't leave until I get an evacuation order because I know that it's going to be stressful to evacuate the seahorses and I may not be able to come back for weeks. So thankfully, we didn't get evacuated. We had a warning for several days and then it got lifted finally. But during that time, I had to think carefully of how I was going to get the seahorses out, what I was going to do, how I was going to set them up somewhere. So, and I'd appreciate some thoughts maybe too from Ray on my ideas of what to do, that what's going to keep them alive if we're away from home. So I packed a tote, I made a kit for them of things that I would need to take care of them. And I brought 2 aquariums, packed 2 10-gallon aquariums, which is where they would live during the time we're evacuated, along with hang on back filters. And I would grab also like some of their favorite hitches, and I had some little plants and things for them to sit on too. A bottle of prime, an ammonia checking test. I have battery powered bubblers for the transportation, an air pump with 7 outlets for once I set them up, wherever they're going to live till we get to come home, a bucket of salt. And basically, what would happen is I had everything that they would need packed into one of my vehicles. And then at the last, before we leave, I had a bucket of salt water ready, acclimated to their temperature. I had to use my swamp cooler, left it in a room with the swamp cooler to bring the temperature down to the temperature of the water that the seahorses live in, because it's only 69 degrees and my house
Right.
is Yeah, and my house is like 80, so the water was 79 degrees on this day. So I
Hmm.
figured out, well, I can't put them in 79-degree water to transport them. So what am I going to do? So I cooled down their water, put it in the room that was cool, and just had that kept that bucket ready throughout the warning time just in case. And what I would do is I had a hiding place for my goby, a little log that I stole from the freshwater fish. And they would have freshwater fish too. I planned for them too. They would have their own bucket. But anyway, in the saltwater bucket, I would have to transport 6 seahorses, my goby, and my little crab. So had a bottle of prime on hand, and
Yep.
they would go into that bucket, and then we'd drive out of here and go. We'd end up at my mother-in-law's house, and I would set up their tanks, and I just have to make the best, giving them lots of water changes, prime, um, being careful, trying to keep their water clean. And it would just be very labor intensive until we get to come home, whenever that is.
So I'm curious to
So,
hear
how
Ray's
do you
thoughts.
keep 6 seahorses in a 10-gallon tank? Is it pretty much like that? Or, Ray, do you have any thoughts on this? Or,
On how to keep
So
them?
what she
yeah,
asked
because
is
they'd have to live in a 10-gallon tank, basically, or
Yeah.
two 10-gallon tanks max. So, just
The thing
use
is,
the
it's
prime.
going to be for probably just a few weeks, eh?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully, right?
So you just do more water changes.
Yeah.
Yep. And I will tell you guys, anybody watching, that I can tell you I would not ever be as prepared as Holly. Like everything she just said is the perfect way to prepare for evacuation. She's had a lot of experience with this because she's had to do it, literally take her seahorses and leave, or be prepared to
Be
repeatedly.
prepared. I haven't had to actually leave with them yet because
Okay,
thankfully the fire that came through and destroyed my town back in 2018, I didn't have the seahorses yet. I was getting ready to order them. I had the
that's
tank
right.
set up and I had a couple tank mates in there, which I lost. And the
Right.
tank went through a mini cycle while we were gone because power was out for a week during the fire, and then it came back on afterwards.
Yeah.
So stuff
Gotcha.
got going again, but I had to pretty much start that tank from scratch again, close
Sure.
to. But
Sure.
thank goodness I didn't have seahorses yet.
I'd be really curious to know like how many days or how long, maybe not even days, a tank can be completely shut down before things go to shit. I mean, obviously they're going to go bad, but I mean like before all the bacteria
It would be
gets.
hard to say because I don't know when I lost those fish. Now we came back 3 weeks later and our
Oh yeah, I
freshwater
well,
fish were still alive. So the
sure.
freshwater fish, some of them made it, but we still lost them
Well,
because
right,
they were
right,
bad off. But the goldfish survived it all, and we
right. Well,
still have them.
that's the that's the hardiness of the fish. But what I'm
Yeah.
getting at is I'd be really curious to know how long, like just for someone who just has a power outage or whatever, how
Mhm.
long we always talk about, like in my case, if my power goes out, before I got the battery operated air pumps, before we've
Mhm.
talked about generators and stuff like that, when you're just somebody who just has a tank and you don't have all that other stuff, one of the things I had to do the first time I had a power outage is literally go over to the tank, take a cup, take water out and pour it back in because it's about the oxygenation, right, Ray? That's what kills the tank is if it's not getting oxygen. Is that right?
All right.
Ray's not listening to me.
I
What?
wasn't listening to you. No,
Sorry.
I was just typing out a response to Zen.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to look at that too. But no, I was asking, are you listening to me now, Ray?
Okay, I just sent it.
Okay. All right, cool. So what I was asking was, is there any data? Has anybody ever said, like, if your power goes out, this is how long everything can be okay before the lack of oxygen
No,
causes the tank to
there is no
crash?
data.
Okay. Okay.
Well, how
All
can you
right.
when
Well,
every system is different? If you've
Yeah,
got
true.
I
different
mean,
type
right.
seahorses, if you've got larger seahorses, if you've got more of them than another system, if your biological filter is not up to handling, you know, various loads, like there's just too many variables for anybody to be able to give you any stats that would mean anything.
Gotcha. Well, so I would say if you're just someone who doesn't have multiple tanks or isn't as invested in their tanks as some of us are, at least get battery powered air pumps, at least get a bucket in case you have to
Mhm.
transport seahorses, because that's what I would do. I don't have everything that Holly just mentioned ready. I absolutely don't. But I also don't have fires, right?
Yeah.
But still, I do have battery powered pumps so that if my power goes out for more than an hour, I can throw these airlines in and, at least get oxygen into the tank. So the tank stays cycled, stays going. Um, I also always have buckets on hand for sure, and salt and et cetera, and prime. Prime was a good thing that she
Mhm.
mentioned. Just because, like, she goes to her stepmom's, she's got great water and she still uses RODI. She goes to her stepmom's or mother in law's, whatever, and maybe the water's not as great, but she's got prime. They can
Mhm.
handle that for a couple weeks, like Ray said.
Yeah, I
Um,
have a bottle of water conditioner too. I didn't mention that, but the stuff that gets rid of chloramines and chlorine and stuff. So I
yep.
have a big
Well,
bottle of that.
Prime does all that, actually. It
Does
does
it
all
do
that.
that too?
Yep, yep. But it wouldn't hurt to use both. I'm just saying it
Mhm.
Prime, have Prime. So just saying, I think we tried to come up, Dan and I tried to come up with a Seahorse med kit and a Seahorse evac kit a long time ago. And like Ray just said, it's too difficult because depends on how many seahorses, depends on the tank, depends on what the reason for evac is. It's too hard to put it all in a box, but there are those basic
I've
things.
done
Like
it.
I wish.
I have my box, and what I have in there is the things I mentioned, but I also have all their medications,
Yeah.
just in case, because I put it all in a Ziploc and things that I use. I have a list of things I need to grab, like their food has to go in an ice chest.
Mm-hmm.
And there's things that I use to measure. There's the turkey baster, the feeding kits. You have to think of, all the little
Well,
things
no,
you need.
and
It's hard.
I wish that we were. I think you should write it all out, Holly. I think you should make a list,
I
because
could, yeah.
let's have you do that, because like what you just said, the food.
Mhm,
I didn't even think about the food. In my
mhm,
area, there's not going to be many reasons that I would ever have to leave my home. So that's not a concern
mhm.
for me. But for someone else, you got to think of, yeah, you could get the seahorses transported to a
And
new
what's
place. But what
available?
about the food?
Yeah, how
Yeah,
easy is it? Like, does the store, like, where are you going to get their food? Like, if you have
right.
a store that always has a supply of food, always has a supply of salt, you may not need to bring more than enough to get you through the day or two of the transporting. But for me, I have to think ahead because there's not a lot of saltwater hobbyists here.
Right.
So a
Right.
lot of these stores do not have salt all the time or the seahorse's food all the time. So I have to think ahead.
So I think the ultimate answer is be prepared, know your area, know the
Mhm,
risks of, of your area, and
mhm.
then, be prepared
Plan
and
for that.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Because
Ray,
there
you
is
said,
areas that get hurricanes and all kinds of other stuff that might have to evacuate too. It
yep,
might be
Dan
something.
had a list. Dan had a list. Ray, you said freeze-dried mysis doesn't spoil and just needs rehydration.
Right.
Yeah, that process though, isn't it pretty intense, or is it pretty simple
Well, I
to
did it.
rehydrate them?
Well, just you just have to make sure that you soak them long enough so that they're not going to float.
Gotcha. Because I tried once and they all floated. So
Yeah, that's because you
I
didn't
didn't do
soak
it
them
long
long
enough. Right. So it's just a matter of maybe doing it prior to know what you're doing so that you know
enough.
how to do it.
Yeah, experiment first and find out how much it takes.
I do have a question about that too. Say you
It's been a
soak.
long time since I did it, so and I don't actually remember, but I know it was more than 24 hours I soaked them.
Well, and I'm not going to ask you any time questions, but I was going to ask, say you soaked them to try to rehydrate them. You tried to feed them and they all floated. Can you take them back and soak them again, or does that not work that way?
Never
Like
tried
if
it,
they
so I can't
weren't
say.
ready yet,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. I just
Well,
wondered.
maybe you could, before putting them in the tank,
Try
put
a
them in
couple.
a little cup of salt water and see
I
what
Yeah.
they
rehydrated them in tank water, like new
like
Oh.
in a cup of
new
water.
salt
Yeah.
water, not just tap water or RODI.
Oh.
Mhm.
Okay. And it's been a long time for me too, but wasn't bleach part of the process somewhere with rehydration, or no? Am I
Bleach?
totally off?
No,
Yeah, I'm okay. I must be off. I'm
not
thinking
mine.
of something else. It's been a long time, guys. But I'm gonna try it myself because that's a good way to be prepared in case you can't get frozen food. I mean, that's a really good idea. Jumping around a little bit, but Zen Ginger, you asked how to reach out. I think you have my text, but anybody who doesn't, yeah, Facebook Messenger is the easiest. Message me. You can message Seahorse Whisperer, but those I don't see all the time. I only when I go check. So if you can just message me, that'd be easiest. Um, I think you can reach out on YouTube, can't you? I could be wrong. But with addresses, I don't want anybody posting addresses anywhere that's public. So yes, let's say Facebook Messenger is the best way to do it. Either message me or Seahorse Whisperer. If I don't respond to you on Seahorse Whisperer, then say something on Wine Wednesday. Hey, I messaged you, and I will go look and get it. Um, Also, backing up a bit, CoraWorks said Geek Boy set up a system running hatched brine shrimp through a dosing pump. This was over a weekend for fry, but I bet they could work for seahorses too. I'll go check it
If
out.
they're
I'm
adult,
guessing what?
you have to culture them long enough to get them to adults, because your
Right.
seahorses, if they're adults, have little to no interest at all in uh, even young juveniles, but especially if it's just an plea from newly hatched.
Well,
Now
so
I
but could you put?
remember I was gonna
Go ahead.
say, remember the guy that we had on here that designed a automated dwarf system for dwarf
Yes.
That was
seahorses?
Jerry.
Wasn't that part of it? Was the food too? Didn't it do the food too?
Yep.
Yeah, but
Yep.
he didn't have to have cultured
Adults.
artemia.
Right.
you know, pardon
So
me.
I'm wondering if any of these hatching systems could work without the hatching part, just with adults. But then again, if you're talking about adults, that it kind of defeats the purpose, because just like that's one of the things I've always said, if you're going on vacation, order some live mysids and throw them in the tank. And I mean, they'll eat throughout the week. They'll hide, they'll da da da, and it'll
Mhm.
work out. So you wouldn't really need a system
You
for
wouldn't
that,
need a
right?
system to feed it. You just put them in there.
And if you get mysids that are saltwater version,
Mhm.
then they will live in the tank until, excuse me, until they're caught, and they're not going to get sucked up into the filters like the brine shrimp will.
Mhm.
Yes, true, because
Mhm.
they're not pelagic, they're
Mhm.
benthic, they stay on the bottom. I love all those fancy words.
Mhm.
Anyways, the other thing too, Ray, I love that you brought up the pump sucking them up, but if the fact that you said mysids, saltwater mysids instead of mysis, because if
No,
you get
I call
freshwater,
saltwater version. I use the term mysid.
Mhm.
right? I'm sorry if I'm not saying it, pronouncing it mysid. So the mysis are freshwater, and
Right.
they will only last a day or two, right?
And that depends on what kind of shape they're in when you buy them, because you don't know when you're buying from the LFS, just the kind of treatment they've had beforehand, how they've been fed, if they've been fed at all. Um, so you just don't know.
Well, I would definitely say enrich them, but even with enrichment, even if you made sure that they were healthy, how long can a freshwater mysis live in salt water? Like I used to feed mysis with an
I never
S.
had any last 24 hours.
I was going to say, I used to feed them to my lionfish and not my lionfish. Yes. No, I'm thinking of ghost shrimp. I'm sorry. But I used to feed them to seahorses, and the mysis, you could tell even half a day, they were slow, not doing
Hmm.
well, like
Yeah.
they weren't going to last. So, good points.
And
Worry
half a
about the
day, you
pumps.
lost all their enrichment anyway.
Right. I know, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying if you're
Oh,
talking about vacation, whatever. So the point is get mysids with a D. Um, let's see, what else did I miss? Okay, Cora Work said, I've also seen people use gravity feed automatic top offs with live food cultures. So they're just constantly dropping a little bit of food in. Problem again is, though, you're not rinsing it if it's thawing in the compartment and we rinse
No,
food.
talking about live food.
Oh, sorry, jumping around too much. So with live food, oh yeah, he said live food cultures. I'm sorry guys. We'll blame the wine, right? But for how long would that last? Gravity with ATO. Oh wait, no, I think I get it. So the feed is in a bucket and it's being pumped in so often, right? Oh, I like that idea. I really like that idea.
I
What's
wonder
wrong with
how
that one,
many
Ray?
get crushed when it's going through the pump. The pump action, it has a cog that goes around, squeezes the tube, and as it squeezes the tube, it's pushing the water ahead. But when it's squeezing the tube, it's going to squeeze the live feed, whatever you're using.
anybody's in there at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's probably
Probably
minimal,
just a
wouldn't you
little
think?
bit of it, I would imagine.
Well,
Uh,
the only one I've seen, the cog on it, I'm trying to think now, was probably about inch and a half in diameter, and it had three, um, yeah, what's the word I want? Three humps on it to come around and squeeze that tube. And the next, go through and squeeze one, next one comes down and hits on it, and there'll be a small space in there, not very large, where anything in there is safe. But then anything beyond that little slight space is going to get squished again.
hmm. I don't know enough about it. I honestly don't use an ATO, but I like the idea.
There's
I'd
a
like
name
to
for
look
the
into
pump,
it.
for that type of pump, but with my cognitive impairment, I can't pull it out right now.
Well, and I just wonder if there's not a way to, I don't know, set it up to where they don't have to go through the pump, if that makes sense. I
The
don't
only
know how,
thing
I
I
don't
can
know
think
how,
of
but
is
Yeah, you'd have to push them through.
the only thing I can think of is something like when I had the mysid cultures set up,
mhm.
and I had the flow such that the naplee from the newborn mysids would get sucked up a tube that was sitting on an angle, and going, the bottom of it was in the adult side where these naplee were born or hatched or whatever, and then they would get sucked up because the flow would go up this tube and over into the capture chamber on the other side. And it's
Mm.
just accomplished by pumping water into that adult side. And as the level rises, it goes over this tube and pushes into the other side. And your pump is taking the intake side from that, the side that you're going to capture the naplee in. That's
Yeah,
the only thing
something
that
like
that I can think of that's not going to squeeze them. Like any other kind of pump. Well, actually, sometimes I've had power heads that would blow adult brine shrimp through the system and they come out alive. But I don't know how practical it is to be able to set it up to handle.
Feeding seahorses for a week. Right, right.
Sure, you can put it on a timer, but to have a density, just the right density, and have it timed just the right number of minutes.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
it would,
and the other thing about like what Ray was just explaining, I adore Ray's DIY projects. He's everything we ever talk about. He's like, "Oh, I made that on my own, and I did it with this, and it worked like this, and it's awesome." But
I've
I'm
never done
not.
anything long term, but those ones that I did there a few years ago, um, after I did my website and that on, I started thinking about the one, and I experimented and got some dry ice and made a longer tube that goes down through the center, and had the food frozen in higher up in the tube so I could have this dry ice around it, and so I had no problem get it to last just over 2 days.
Hmm.
So
That's cool.
Nice.
But what I was gonna say is,
they're very
I
crude
would be
though.
I would be terrified to set up anything like this and then go on vacation because my DIY experiences have been right. Like I made my own sump and it leaked. So
I'm
while I
terrified to go on vacation, period.
right, right. But I'm just saying, like, think about what's best for you. If you're a DIY, like if you're Cora Works and you're all into this kind of stuff, and he knows the most advanced ways. Okay, yeah, try that. Let us know how it works out. If you're a Ray and you love to build your own stuff and figure things out, yay, tell us how it works out. Build it, then duplicate it and sell it to me because I don't want to build it and I don't want to trust it and I don't want to leave it responsible for my seahorses, right? So just keeping that in mind. And Ray, I'll put that
There's
link up.
probably a lot of handy people out there, so they could
Yeah,
take what I've done and see if they can expand on it and make something better. I'm too old
absolutely.
now, and the cognitive impairment is just too much to for me to work with stuff like that anymore now.
I got you. Well, I just posted the link.
It's too much for me to work with that stuff, Ray.
But it's just ideas that I get, and so I do something with it, and I try to work with things that I already have. I'm a pack
My
rat. I don't
husband's
know
like
anything else.
that too. You'd
Yeah.
love
And I
Scott. He put together my tank pretty much, and he's not a plumber, he's a carpenter, but I told him what I needed. I need the water to get from this tank to the sump, and then I need it to come back in. And I need, and he figured it all out and got it all plumbed for me. But I wouldn't be able to do it. I'd be afraid too. I'd be afraid that I didn't do it right and something was going to leak. And yeah, I'm
If I
not that.
don't try, I don't know.
Yeah,
well,
true,
that's
true.
true. That's true.
That's what
And
Scott
I have
said. I
friends.
said, "What if?" And he says, "Well, we won't know until we turn it on." He says, "Just turn it on and watch." He says, "And if it
Right.
does something wrong, unplug it."
Well, and I think you people are fantastic, but I'm left here with a significant other who's like, don't even ask. Leave me alone. I have nothing to do with it. If it leaks, it's on you. So I'm just saying, know yourself. Don't do anything stupid. We're not telling you to set up some expansive thing. It might be easier to just get a seahorse sitter. Or if we're talking about evacuation, different steps. Just saying we're sharing all the different ways that everybody does things because everybody is different. All the tanks are different. So take what you
I
need,
will
leave the
make.
rest.
Yeah,
Well,
I will make a
recently.
list for everyone.
I had need
Yes,
recently
thank
for
you.
a drill press. I
Okay.
don't have a drill press, and I'm certainly not about to go out and spend money on one, especially at my age. But I looked online and found that they had these cheapy things that you fasten your drill on the top of, and it's got its own chuck on it, and you put a drill bit in it. But when I read about all the complaints about it, that it doesn't really drill down very straight, and it's very hard to work with. And I looked around and had stuff from the aquarium days. I had ABS fittings from the plumbing that I used to use. I had rigid airline tubing, but I also had some deck boards, scrap deck boards left over from when I repaired the deck and so on. That was many years ago. But I ended up making a contraption that I took the ABS fittings and epoxied them onto the front and back of the drill, and then made with the deck boards. I made a unit so that I put the drill in and let it go down, and the sides. It was a three-sided affair, and so as long as I held it against the back, then the sides were controlled. And I had
And
a
it
problem
worked.
with being consistent with it. Sometimes it come out where there is no side. Well, you got to be able to shove this thing down, and the handle has to go down. So I just thought, well, something out to the side there. So I got these two pieces of 1/4 inch inside diameter, or no, sorry, it was 3/8 inside diameter rigid airline tubing, and I epoxied one on each side of these two sides down there with
Made
the
it straight.
drill in there with the ABS fittings on it, and put them right up against the ABS fittings, let it solidify, and then I was able to control it all the way. Then it didn't tip at all.
So
But then,
I will
then I
just
found
say,
out,
oh,
but it wasn't dead on when I put a drill through a piece of 2x4, which is 1.5 inches thick. It'd be out just a little wee bit on the far side where it come out. So then I used Gorilla Tape to shim in the appropriate spot to get this thing to line up. So now it goes through dead straight.
so
And
I
it,
would say you lost me when you said drill head. And I would also say we need people like you. And I want like you and Cora Works to do your own show and just talk about the show because I think it's fascinating, but you lost me. I have no idea what you just said. But I think it's so awesome because you guys are the people that invent the things that work, right? I mean, Zen, you need to take part in that conversation too. I'm just not that person, but I think it's so cool. And I know that half of you guys out there that just heard what he said understood it. Bravo. Go make it and make it better, right? For us, because the rest of us, the first try, I've never made another sump because the first one didn't work out. I'm gonna buy from now on. I'm not that adventurous, but I'm grateful for the people who are. I'm grateful for you, Ray. But yeah, I'm grateful you got it to work, but I have no idea what you just said. So that being said, um, let me see. I don't think I missed any. Oh, Zen did say maybe you could invest in a 50-gallon drum and cut it slightly bigger than in half.
I
It's
don't
lightweight
have
enough.
room for anything. Like, you got to understand, when we evacuate, we have to pick and choose what we're going to take.
Yeah.
And it comes down to, you don't know how much time you're going to have. So you start with what's the most important to you and pack that. And then as hours or days go by, oh, well, I can fit this too. So we have two vehicles, one that needs to tow another vehicle out of here. Uh, Toyota 4Runner. So I have my Toyota 4Runner and I have my car. And so a bucket of fish is going to go in each vehicle and their things, but we also need my things and Scott's
Yeah.
things. And you can't rent a U-Haul here. My town burned down in 2018. There's no U-Haul rentals.
I was
When
gonna
you
say too.
evacuate,
Let
you're
me.
on your own here.
And I was just gonna jump in and say I'm jealous of you, Zen, because yeah, when I went to move just my house myself,
Uh-huh.
I couldn't
You
find a
couldn't get
freaking
one.
U-Haul company
It's the
anywhere.
same way
Nothing.
here. When you do go to the towns that have them, you have to book like weeks ahead usually to get one.
Yeah. So
But
good idea for you
a
though. I
tote,
mean,
but you can use totes, and I do have those big plastic totes because I use them to pack my things that I'm evacuating in. And
yep, yep.
actually, the Seahorses things are in a tote, but I don't mind transporting them in a bucket or something where they can't see out of like that. But once I'm setting them up in a house or a hotel or what have you, I want them to be able to see, and I can see.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm laughing because Zen said Scott doesn't need things. Tell him to man up. You need fish. Your fish need
no, you
space.
know what? You're totally right. When he packed nothing during our evacuation
Oh,
morning, everything packed was my stuff. He's like, I don't care. He's like, I don't care about anything.
and
But I'll
Zen,
tell you, if it came down to an order, he would grab some of his video games and a video game machine, and that's what he would bring, I'm sure.
and I would have to throw it back at you, Zen, and say we're still waiting on you to set up. Tell your hubby forget the plumbing. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I thought that was really cute.
No, I'm lucky
And
if Scott brings clothes when we have to evacuate. I have to tell him to pack a bag.
jeez. So Zen also said she would pay good money to see people like Ray, Coro, and Mr. Wizard with fishy stuff, right?
They
I mean,
yeah,
if they just I would give up a wine Wednesday if y'all want to come in here. I won't be able to contribute because I'm not DIY and I won't know what you're talking about, but I can sit here and make it happen. I would pay too, Zen, to just hear them go back and forth about, well, what about if we used a 2x4 with a 3/8 inch screw and this and that? Oh man, they would come up with so many ideas. It'd be amazing. Shyla, I put 3 pics on one. Okay, I'll go look at them, Ray, in just a second. Shyla, I still want your address. It's not a fish. It's not a food. I'm sending you a shirt. Get with me, please. Um, and Ray, I do want to show you guys my seahorse before it gets too late. But Ray, what are the pictures you sent me on Messenger? Just tell me now.
Just what I was trying to explain to you, and you didn't understand, so I just figured I'd show you.
Oh, okay. In Wine Wednesday or?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not showing up for me. Hang on. All right, before I find that, let me just show you guys. Well, no, actually, let's not go out of order.
It's
Let's
right
finish
after
what we're talking about
Holly's.
with
It
Ray.
probably makes things difficult. Most.
I was going to show while you're looking. If anybody's interested in holiday decor for their seahorse tanks, I know people have asked me about that before. PetSmart
Okay.
has their Halloween stuff out right now, and it's all limited edition. So a lot of times they're sold out as stuff by Halloween. So if you want stuff like that, it's on their website and in the stores.
I was on the other page. Did you make it? Did you show it? Show it one more time
Yeah,
when you make
so
the
I
page.
got Dandy this nice circle hitch. It glows
Cute.
in the blue lighting, and it also glows in the dark. I noticed because I stuck it away in a tote to store it for Halloween, and it started glowing in the dark. So it
All
glows.
right. Does
And
that
this
ever?
is a light up
Oh,
bubbler,
sorry. Nice. Oh,
and
they love the
it's
bubblers.
got a USB plug-in cord. I haven't opened it yet to make sure it's long enough, but it's also a bubbler and it changes colors.
So wait,
So
USB cord in the tank?
no, the wire goes. It's got a
Oh,
cord.
okay.
So it's the
Okay. Okay.
connection. I got to make sure the connection is long enough to be outside the tank,
To
of
be
course.
safe. I got you now. Sorry. I was
But
like, wait,
kind of
what?
like, like you saw my plug-in volcanoes and things when you were over. So
Yes. And
it's
they
like
love them But I did wonder, do they
I
ever
don't know if
get
they'll like this one because it's
freaked
huge,
out?
though.
Yeah, or like the
No,
glow in the dark thing? They don't care?
they don't. No,
Okay.
what they seem to care about is it comfortable to hang on to. And the bubbles and stuff, like Sadie with her new bubbler, I have to control the bubbles just right for her to want to sit in it because she doesn't like it if the bubbles are too fast.
Hmm.
So I
I
have to
know.
control the but things like this, I don't see anybody wanting to hitch on it because it's just fat.
Yeah.
But they don't
But
have a light in their tank right now at night, and I used to use a, black light above the tank, but it just attracted so many bugs, I finally stopped.
hmm
So
so
I'm like,
Shy,
"Oh, this might be fun." We'll
we'll see
see.
how it goes. That's right. That's it. Trying something new. Shyla said, "Ain't no fire stopping the seahorses from getting their new
Right,
gecko."
right,
I love it. All
right.
right. So I will tell you, I did try to find your pictures, Ray, but all I'm seeing is you guys making fun of me and my cut hand for being late to Wine Wednesday. So I'm not seeing them yet. I'll try again in a minute. In the meantime,
Oh,
I do want to show you. Go ahead.
okay,
Oh,
I'll,
I thought
Oh,
you were
I
I'll
don't
try
see 'em.
again.
I don't
okay.
see them either, so they must have not uploaded yet, maybe. Maybe they
Okay.
take time to
So
upload. There they
so
are.
I'm gonna jump in and I'm gonna show you guys what I wanted to show you. And here is the question prior. You guys know that I bought a pair of seahorses from Macro Lady. Love them. They're gorgeous.
Mhm.
They fit right in. Wonderful. They're all community. I love it. I'm, I want fry. You guys know I want fry.
Mhm.
They're all keeping the damn fry from me. This pair has already
How
had
would we
fry.
know that?
Stop, Ray. It's not. So, anyways, I walked in the other day to this. I'll just show you guys and we'll talk from there. Here we go. All right. So, whoops, wrong one. Can you see what I'm seeing?
Oh, he's
Looks like a
big.
So,
male
but
seahorse.
look, I know, right, Ray? I don't think he's pregnant at all. Look at
I don't
his
think
little
so.
heart O
No,
face.
he's puffing up.
He's puffing up. That's what I thought too. That's what I wanted to kind of
My
show
buddy
for anybody else.
Seahorse always likes to go around with a big pouch. He has a big pouch, and he always keeps his pouch big for all those ladies in his house.
So, real quick, Ray, why did you instantly say he's not pregnant? He's just puffing up. What told you that?
Well, I knew you were going to ask me.
But now tell me the reason.
The reason why you were going to ask me?
No, why do you
Why you
know?
say that?
Well, to me, it doesn't look pregnant. It is, um, it's a fairly enlarged pouch, but the shape just isn't what I'm used to seeing.
Right. It's more out than, or it's more wide than out, I think,
Well,
too.
I would expect if you look at the top of the pouch there, but looking at the sides, um, you can see it's puffed out to the fronts, and the sides basically, though, while they're out a bit, they're fairly straight. And
Yeah.
from my recollection, it's more convex
Okay.
when it's carrying. You know,
Gotcha.
you know what I keep trying to tell people about healthy seahorses, their body and that. Well,
Yes.
the pouch, in my recollection now, it's more convex like that when it's actually carrying. And whenever I found any of my males that were just pumping up, it was more like this, where it was just straight sided. I
Yep.
can't,
I
I
agree.
can't say that was 100% of the time, um, but it's just what my gut feeling is when I look at it, based on the years of looking at these things.
And I 100% agree. And I just, the only other question is every time I've seen a male puffing up like this, and that's exactly, I knew he wasn't pregnant. I knew he was just puffing up, but I thought, why? Usually, when a male in my tank has always been puffing up, it's next to a female to show off, because he's trying to get eggs, whatever. This was first thing when I turned on the light. That's why you can see him kind of changing colors and such. It's because I had just turned the light on. He's already puffed up. Like I
I've
almost
seen
thought,
some do that for 2 or 3 days straight.
okay,
Yeah, Buddy does that. Buddy likes to go around with a big pouch all the time.
look at this male. He's got a Marilyn Monroe figure. Look at his hips. My God. But yeah, I just also I noticed. Have
It's
you
not
guys ever
sealed.
noticed? Have you ever noticed that their little opening looks like a heart? I just
No,
was
I
like,
just noticed it now. You're right.
I
Yeah,
never know.
that's
you
cute.
don't see a heart, Ray,
I'm not
right
that
there with the
observant.
food. Okay, all right, I'm done sharing. I just wanted to show you, like, so anybody who's looking to have fry like me, I also noticed this under part too. Usually when they're pregnant, I feel like the tail goes like the pouch goes into the tail more. This is just air. I mean, I can tell too. Um, I just don't know why he was doing it first thing in the morning. You know,
Because he's
so
ready to go.
I
Early
hope,
morning. My
but
seahorses, that's their time. They love early morning.
well, we'll see what happens. I need to clean up the tank. You guys saw the bad algae on the good
They're
algae.
morning people, Kelly. I know you
I
aren't, but the seahorses
know. Ah! And she does know I'm not. She does know I'm not. But so, Ray, are they just withholding on me because I want them so bad? Is that it? I'm teasing. That
It may
wasn't a
be
real
that
question.
they're not just totally comfortable in the setups
Yeah,
that you have.
I know.
I've seen people take fry that I've sold them and grow them up, and they've never had
yeah,
offspring, and yet
yeah.
fry from the same batches that went to other people were very prolific.
And I totally take no offense to that and agree with that. Like you guys know, this is my first time trying out an all-in-one. I don't feel good about not having a sump. It may be water quality. It may very well be. My only problem with that, the problem that I have in the back of my head is that my first tank was literally a 29-gallon with 4 erectus in it and macros, and they went crazy breeding like nonstop. I ended
yeah,
up upgrading and moving the seahorses to bigger tanks and doing better as I learned. But I'm just
all
saying,
mine
why
were
in that
born
first
in a
tank?
swamp.
Yeah.
All mine
So
were born in a swamp. That was back when I had the rock and there was algae everywhere. It was disgusting. It was probably high organics. And yeah, that's where mine were all born in those circumstances.
yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I agree with you, and I used to really buy into the height thing because, like
Mhm.
in this all-in-one, I see them during the doing the circular dance, and then they hit the surface, and it's like they don't have time to do the egg to connect to do the egg exchange. But then we had, oh, who was it? I'm not going to remember the name, you guys. I'm so sorry. That's so disrespectful. I'm so bad with names. But we had a guest on many times, and he talked about his seahorses breeding in a very long, very short, like 12-inch high tank,
Mhm.
and they were breeding.
They figured it
So
out. Mhm.
it's just, I guess, when they want to, if they want to. And I do agree, water quality is a big part of it, for sure. I just can't imagine that the water quality in my first tank, when I had no idea what I was doing
Right.
and had them in a small tank, was much better than now when I'm trying and know what I'm doing and
Yeah.
etc. But it
Yeah.
still could just be the tank. Who knows? Or the seahorses. Who knows? Um, ooh, Zen said, are seahorses like a lot of freshwater fish in that they seem to be more active with or after a barometric pressure change? Would it be good to do a slightly cooler water changes when there's storms? Ray, you answered her, but say it out loud. No
I have no
idea.
idea. No, I guess
I'll
if
try.
like I would Google it to see if there is anything, but I kind of suspect there isn't.
I kind of suspect there is, actually. I know that,
With
I don't
regard
know.
to
Well,
seahorses,
Mentioned that once. Didn't Dan mention that like before they had hurricane come through and
yep.
stuff? The
He said
seahorses
he
would
could,
get active breeding.
yep. And he said
I
he
don't know.
could tell that something was coming because, like dogs, like how dogs act weird when a storm's coming, he said his
Mhm.
seahorses would act weird. I've never personally seen it, but I'm not in an area where there's hurricanes or,
Yeah, we
you
don't
know,
get those here,
right.
so. But
Um,
thunderstorms and stuff, I know my seahorses don't really react to that, so
sure.
it must be different. But it's not, I think, for us compared, thunderstorms aren't the same as
A
what
hurricane,
happens
right,
in a hurricane. So it maybe the
right.
pressure doesn't change fast enough for them to notice a difference or something. I don't know.
I would agree. I would agree. And I would also say, too, though, that I don't know about barometric pressure, but I would say that Dan absolutely did tell me back in the day, if you want them to breed and they're not, the first thing you start doing is playing with temperature, not to where it would hurt them or hurt the tank, but just, yeah, do a slightly cooler water change. Or, I'm sorry, to get them to breed, do a slightly warmer water change, adjust the lighting. There's different little things that you can do. I'm probably too busy to have fry. They're probably not having fry because they know I can't take care of them right now. Holly even sent me home with a bunch of a fry kit, with some brine shrimp, some eggs and all this stuff. I'm not
Enrichment,
set
all
up,
the little things for them.
but I'm
I'm
not set
afraid she's
up.
going to
So,
bleed in your tank.
well, no, my plan is I've got everything here. I'm not going to set up a bunch of hatcheries and stuff until I know if anybody's going to have fry. The first batch usually isn't great, anyways. I will absolutely still try with them if they have them, but I probably won't be prepared. It'll be rush, rush. It won't go well. But then I will be prepared because I know once they start having fry, they continue. I've never had a pair have a batch and then never again. Once they start, they keep going. So I'm just kind of playing it by ear. But,
Mhm.
and yeah, so Zen, you do cold water changes to encourage breeding with the Cordelias, loaches, cichlids. Yeah, and I'd have to get with Dan on the exacts because I can't even remember if it was cold or hot that makes them breed. To be honest, I can't remember which one it was, but I think it was more of just the change. They think the
Mhm.
season changed because the temperature changed or
Mhm.
whatever. So be interesting to dive into more though. Um, and you live in the Gulf of Mexico, so you've got changes like Dan does in Florida, right? So
Mhm.
we need you to get some seahorses so you can answer that question and tell us how your seahorses act when there's a storm. But
I remember when the org was very active. Some people had luck just with changing all the rock and other decor around.
to get them to breed, you mean?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, I
with
know.
me, it was more changing the color, the background, and that. When I went to putting sky blue for the background, I had my best luck with that.
Well, and I'll admit too that Dan said that red was never good in his seahorse tanks. Like everybody
Mhm.
wanted red seahorses, so he
Yeah,
did some experiments with trying to change the color. But every red decoration or every red thing he did, the seahorses would turn black.
yeah, I
I've
tried
got a
that.
bunch of, I've got a bunch of red macro in the tank, right?
Mhm.
Because it makes the tank gorgeous. But
Huh.
apparently they don't uh they see it as black or whatever. I do have light sky blue on the background and underneath because this tank you can see down,
Yeah,
because the stand is open, so I put the light colored blue underneath. Um i i do wonder if the rocks have some play in it, and I'm thinking color and breeding now. But I like rocks in the tank. Like these are
Mhm.
rocks that are not live. Well, they are now, but they're rocks that I've had forever. You know, there's no chance of critters, and I like the scape. You know, I like to have mountains and hills and make it pretty like that. Um, and Bonnie said, yes, Zen said Kelly's gonna make me breed seahorses whether I want to or not. Absolutely, you've got to show me up. You're gonna be like, watch, you're gonna get a. So I don't want to say it because now you're gonna be like, I don't want seahorse. You're gonna get a pair of seahorses and they're gonna give you fry right away, and I'm gonna be so jealous. Also, I remember earlier you said something, and I forgot to mention it while we were live, but you said um, I love it. All these longtime seahorse keepers are like, oh, seahorses have all these needs, and evacuation is difficult, and then go get seahorses. Let me tell you, that's not me. I promise. Holly is to a point where she's kind of over it, and not over it. She loves her seahorses, but I mean, she's not going to do more probably because she wants to do other things with her life, and that's fine. And she goes through a lot because of where she lives, right? And
Yeah,
because of the things that she has to do to prepare for evacuation and such.
it's not the safest place to keep seahorses here.
Right. And I would just
As
say
you can
though,
see, I'm out in the woods.
right. And it's beautiful there. But I
It
would just
is.
say that I sincerely do not believe that seahorses are difficult. And if you want to talk to me on the side, I'll tell you some true secrets. Me and Holly talk on the side. I mean,
Mhm.
we come on here, we tell you the best that we can to the best of our ability to help everyone. Ray gives his experiences, Holly gives hers, I give mine. Some of them are scary and bad. Some of them are, beware. But 90% of the time, they're basic. They're just like a
Mhm.
fish tank. They're more friendly than other fish. They're more like puppies. They're better to keep. They're funner to keep. As long as you follow the rules, they don't get sick. And we kind of prepare for the worst on the channel because if somebody out there is having a problem, we want to help them. But
Mhm.
no, I sincerely would tell anyone to keep seahorses. I've gone back 3 times now because different events in my life stopped me from keeping them, and I've gone back because
Mhm.
I don't think I'd ever keep other fish again. They're just
If I was
so,
20 years younger, I'd still be doing it.
that's it. They're so
Mhm.
friendly. They're so, if you want to breed,
Mhm.
you wouldn't have an all in one. Like I could be breeding right now. I really don't have the time in my life. I just want them. I miss the babies, right? But
Yeah,
to set up to deal
I
with
miss
the
them too. I just don't miss all the work.
right. So it is work. There's no lie. I'm not trying to say it's
It's
not
labor intensive.
labor intensive, but they're not hard. They're
No.
not as complicated as all the bad things seem. It's just like in other forums I'm sure you visit about other fish, discus or whatever. Everybody's like, oh, you can't keep. I kept discus too. They weren't that hard. They needed soft water, whatever. Anyways, um,
Yeah, there you go, Kelly.
I'm
Look what
not
Ray
getting
said.
dwarfs.
Just
I
get
don't
some
want
work.
the labor intensive. I like the experience of little Johnny boy silver seahorse fry growing up into this big beautiful stallion. That's what I love. I I
I
had
don't know.
so
I
many
wouldn't mind some
seahorses.
dwarves. They live in a smaller house, so the water
I don't
changes are a whole lot easier.
I'll never tell someone not to get dwarfs if you want them, but
I
it's
think
not for
I have a
me.
big fish bowl that's big enough for them.
No, they need more than that. And I'm just
It's a
saying,
good
like,
3 gallons. I think that's about all they need if you don't have many.
you don't succeed long term with dwarfs either. I mean, you
No,
do
but
if
they don't have long lives. But they
yeah.
reproduce all the time, and that their babies eat the same thing. So it's not as complicated as the
It's
erect.
what you want. It's what you want. One of the things that Dan always said about dwarf seahorses, though, is like what I'm describing. And again, guys, it's
Mhm.
what you want. I have
But
no
they're
problem with
tiny.
dwarfs, but you have friends over. Not that friends matter. You come into your house and you go up to your tank, and it's like, where's the seahorses?
You
Let me
need a
try to find them.
magnifying glass.
I walk up to my tank. I mean, I need to post more videos. I walk up to my tank and they're like, "Shoom, welcome home, mom," and they're big and they're
Yeah,
beautiful and they're in my
there's
face
big Sadie
and
looking
they're,
at me,
dancing
sitting at
with
the
each
dish,
other.
watching me walk by.
Yeah, interacting. I just
Yeah.
like the larger species, but to each their own. To each their own. I know, Zen. We're all good. But I can't wait for you to have seahorses. I hope they don't breed for you right away just because you don't want that. But the experience, though, guys, like I just want people to keep seahorses. You don't need to breed. But once you do, if you ever do, that experience of literally taking this teeny tiny fry
Yeah,
and under
little
your
intimate
care turning
place.
it into this huge seahorse is just
I'm still
unreal.
tickled to death because I took so many pictures when I was raising the fry,
Yeah,
and Sadie stood out because she was always the biggest one.
yeah.
So I have pictures of her when she was a tiny little thing, and I even recognize her in the pictures. I'm like, oh, that's Sadie because she has
Oh,
such
sorry.
a distinctive shape.
Yeah.
She was really a good looking seahorse, her even when she was a little fry, and it's
Well, and
so
you said, Holly, that you kind of couldn't tell who was who or whatnot. With my fry, I
Mhm.
mean, when they're this big, you can't tell them apart.
No,
You can't.
but when they get a
But
little
once
bigger, you
they're,
can.
yeah, and then
Yeah,
you know who they are. You can name them if you're
yeah,
like me or Holly. But
yeah,
just amazing.
yeah.
But Bonnie did ask, excuse me, does feeding the seahorses occasionally live food help them to breed? I would say yes. We're going to ask Ray when he comes back what he thinks. But I would absolutely say that diet, and I think Cheryl would back me up on this big time because she's all about
Mhm,
diet. I think
mhm.
diet plays a big part. And I haven't given my seahorses live foods in quite a while. I've been lazy.
Yeah, my ones that had fry never had live food though. So
Yeah, I'm not
so
saying
it
it's
I think
necessary.
it could help, it might influence them, but yeah, I don't think you need that necessarily for them to breeding. I think we
Sure.
probably don't completely know everything, it sounds like, about why they want to breed or not.
So,
There's probably
Ray,
some things that work and help, but we don't have a definitive answer. Otherwise, Kelly would be having fry right now.
well, again, let's
you
be clear
know,
though. I know what I could do to get my
to
seahorses breeding.
influence
I'm just
them.
not willing to do it right now. I just want them to
Yeah.
breed the way I want them to breed. So there are always ways to get them breeding if you really want them to. I'm
Mhm.
just lazy and don't want to go through it. I just want them to give me fried. But Ray, do you think that feeding live foods
Yep,
to seahorses promotes breeding?
I've heard that, but I've never experienced it myself.
Okay, so it didn't change anything for you, or did
Well,
you just not try?
it's something I usually did it once a week anyway, all the time, because I
Gotcha.
was culturing brine shrimp to sell to the fish stores here that they could sell to their customers.
That's right. Okay.
See, here in
So,
Canada, we don't have companies that ship brine shrimp and stuff like that around, like brine,
Brine shrimp direct.
livebrineshrimp.com.
brine
Oh,
shrimp direct. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you have
Live brine shrimp direct.
livebrineshrimp.com, I think, down there.
mm.
And they ship all over the place, but they don't ship to Canada.
Yep. You were the guy. I know.
Well,
You were the guy.
there were shipments that would come in sometime, but they were sporadic, and I don't know where they were coming from,
Right.
and so I have no idea about quality or anything like that.
Sure.
So for me personally, I didn't want to trust that source for say for quality, but the main thing was that it was so sporadic. You might go 3 or 4 months without anything, and then you'd have some for a week or two, and then another maybe 6 months without any. So with me,
Yep.
I could supply the stores every week, and they had a known quantity.
Right. And I would say too, back to the question, it does depend on what live feed you're talking about because Ray's talking about brine shrimp. I was thinking about mysid shrimp. Like that's what I always buy as a live food treat for my
Well,
seahorses.
I used to culture mysid shrimp, but the thing is, it's so
They're hard
labor
to culture.
intensive. I had
Yes.
to ask for $1 per shrimp,
Yeah.
and and then people didn't want to do that. So after a year or so, I quit.
I get it. I get it. And Shyla said she has a huge amphipod population in the tank now that's helping the seahorses look plump, but they were breeding prior, right? So again, back to Bonnie's question, if your seahorses aren't breeding and you want them to, first I would look at water quality. Second, I would look at possibly like tank size and just how many seahorses you have in the tank and that kind of thing, the schematics of it. Then, if that's still not working, then using things like lighting, like feeding live foods, like possibly different temperature water changes, I think definitely can entice them. But there are just some that aren't going to breed. And there are some that will just breed no matter what. Like my first pair, I didn't do a darn thing. I literally put them in a 29-gallon, too crowded tank, and I had fry within a month and a half.
That
Nothing.
was
I
my
did nothing.
experience too.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I got that pair, they just started
And
getting
but
busy within the first month.
it could also be that they had been breeding prior, right? We just don't know. We don't there's no definitive answer, but if you're ever in a position like me, I would say don't be as lazy as I am. Do the things you need. Like you saw in the tank, there's nuisance algae, right? I need to clean up the tank. Maybe they're not happy with the tank. Maybe he doesn't want his eggs getting in the pouch and whatever's in the water getting in there too. Who knows? So I'm not doing what I really need to do to get fry. I just keep hoping they'll give me some because that's what happened in the first place. When I get serious, I'll let you guys know what I did to make it happen. Um, and but I see amphipods as working for some people. My seahorses have never touched them. They won't touch
Mine,
amphipods.
mine didn't like them either.
So just depends on what you got going on. Um, I would say if you're talking about feeds, always go for saltwater feeds if you can, or enrich, right? Because, you know, anything's good, but enrichment always helps. Um, uh, then said, how long do you keep your lights on? Tropical fish hobbyists say 14-hour photo periods are more likely to cause breeding in seahorses. So now I wonder if they like warmer summer waters to breed. Again, I'd have to talk to Dan because he did tell me all this. I just don't remember. It's been a minute. But I think you're right. I think, isn't that right, Holly? That they breed more in the summer months and then they take the break in the winter?
I think it depends on the species.
I've
Yeah,
heard
some
Okay.
it's
species
the species. Yeah, like Ray's saying, it's by species.
yeah.
Okay.
But
Well,
mine usually were on 16-hour light.
okay, really?
Yeah,
16-hour light. Huh.
yeah.
Wow. So maybe I need to change my lighting schedule because I really don't have a schedule. It's I turn it on and then I turn it off. I'm not very prepared, you guys. Sorry. Holly, what were you going to say?
I was saying with Erectus, I've heard, I want to say it's like fall and
Okay.
spring, I think are the
Okay.
times. Now, when I had the two that were breeding, I got them, I want to say in March or April, and they started having fry within a month or so and kept going all the way through January. So
I was going to
they were,
say
if he lived longer, he might have gone the whole year. I
my
bet
first
I lost
pair,
the mail.
my big purple seahorse and his white beautiful stallion. I guess it's not a stallion. A stallion's a male. His white beautiful mate. Um, they started giving me fry on. I had a well. So I added the mac. No, I did. I had the macros right away. So I had the light cycle set for like the freshwater rise and sunset kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I changed it when I did add the sump. But again, they started giving me fry right away. So in
Mine.
fact, one of the things that happened is when I first changed to the brighter light and when I first added the sump, that male that had been giving me Seahorse fry every month, consecutively, when I changed it all over and upgraded the tank, he had a miscarriage. Like I had a bunch of, I don't mean to gross any eggs with heads. He bore a bunch of eggs with heads that couldn't survive, that couldn't, that weren't formed, and etc. And it was, I really to this day believe that the shock of
The
the
light scared him.
changes, yeah. But anyways, he didn't breed more or less, like he kept breeding. So I don't know. I think there are just some seahorses that are really strong and breeders. Like
Mm-hmm.
even commercial breeders, they weed through them. Like if we had Chris Carey in here, he would say he had the pick of
To pick
hundreds
them.
of seahorses, and he would pick out the strongest and the most active and whatever, and he'd put them together to breed, and that's how he'd get fry. So us hobbyists don't have that. We've got what we've got, and we've
Yeah.
got to deal with it. But now I have seahorses from 3-4 different people,
Mm-hmm.
so it'll come around, especially if I get off my butt and start cleaning the tank like I should and doing what I need to do to prepare them. But
I liked
all
what
right, guys,
Shyla said.
what'd
Did
you
you
say?
see what Shyla says? She says, "Well, I only have a pair. They didn't have many fish to choose from in their ocean."
Right, right. But sometimes that's not the thing, because I swear to you,
Yeah.
the 2 seahorses I got from Ocean Rider, they
Mhm.
didn't like each other. They just, I'm not saying it has anything to do with Ocean Rider. I'm just saying
I was gonna say,
they
did they send
didn't
you
like
enemies
each
on
other.
purpose so they wouldn't breed?
Right, right. Ocean Rider doesn't want you breeding seahorses, but I'm not even saying all that. I'm just saying this pair of seahorses was not compatible. You could tell from the start they just didn't, it just wasn't a jive thing. And when I added other seahorses, then things started to at least happen. At least I'm seeing poofy pouches, right? It'll happen when it's supposed to happen. I'm in no place to actually raise fry guys, so it's just a desire. And I talk about it because I know other people want that, and as I get answers, I hope it helps you guys. But hopefully, I will someday. But I'm not really, like really that angry.
It'll
Um,
probably be the day that you decided you don't want them.
don't say that. Don't say. It'll be that I'm planning. I think you guys know. I might as
Yeah,
well
it'll
tell you
be when you
now.
go to Italy.
Yeah, I think I've told you guys before, but in October I'm going to Italy. I'm still going to try to do Wine Wednesday. Don't worry, but I'm just saying, yeah, you're right. That would be, they'll give me fry and I'll be like, I'm not canceling the trip for fry. Sorry. I'm sorry, guys. But anyways, all right, are we good for tonight? Any other questions, comments, things we need to chat about? We're hitting that 10 o'clock mark. All right. Well, uh Shyla, I know we need Seahorse Source Part 4. I know we do. I gotta get Dan in line. I'm trying. I really am. I know. There's so much more he could share. Thank God we still have Ray here.
Mhm.
Cheryl's trying to come back, just for anybody who noticed that she's not been here. She's trying to come back. She's just been super busy. We all care and we want the experts here. Just life gets in the way sometimes, so I'm still trying to get him here. But anyways, yes, Bonnie, thanks for coming. Thank you everyone for coming. We will see you next week. Let's say happy wine Wednesday, everyone. Happy
Good night,
wine
all.
Wednesday.